Hi everyone. So we're going to move on from our tropical rainforest and take tropical forest and take a look at temperate forests. So the first temperate forest that we're going to see is going to be called our temperate rainforest. So as the name implies, we're going to see a lot of precipitation that occurs here. So some characterizing factors are cool, humid weather, and abundant rainfall. We're also going to see a lot of mosses around our trees and tree trunks covered with lichen and a forest floor covered in ferns. You're going to see these in North America, Australia, and New Zealand, and these are going to be dominated by evergreen trees. We're going to define evergreen trees as conifers, and we're going to talk about what that is in just one second. So in these temperate rainforests, we're going to see year-round moderate temperatures. So we're not going to see much temperature fluctuation, and we're also going to see heavy rainfall, hence rainforest. Again, we're going to see it in the Pacific Northwest of the United States, and characterized by these tall evergreen trees. These are cedars, hemlocks, and again, all of these trees are going to be called conifers. So they're coniferous trees. They produce seed-bearing cones. So something you might be familiar with is pine cones. Again, so our forest floor is shaded in damp and covered in moss. So you have a really nice picture over here with this greenery that's found in these temperate rainforests. And a lot of the animals that are going to live here are going to require that moisture. So amphibians, that's going to be like frogs, different like lizard type animals, salamanders, things like that. Our next temperate forest is going to be called our temperate deciduous forest. So this is a different term. So deciduous is going to be meaning trees that lose their leaves seasonally. So these are characterized, again, by trees that shed their leaves in the fall. This is very familiar with our forest being a temperate deciduous forest. So these temperatures can range from extremes. So we can see summers that have highs of 35 degrees Celsius or 95 degrees Fahrenheit, and winters with temperatures that fall below freezing. So we know that big temperature fluctuation is going to be a characteristic here. We also see that we're going to receive up to 75 to 125 centimeters or 30 to 50 inches of precipitation annually. So that's per year, which is going to help decompose that organic matter that's going to contribute to these really, really rich soils that we see in our temperate deciduous forests. So some characterizing factors, our precipitation is spread evenly throughout the year. Temperatures are going to vary with season, so we have very hot summers and cold winters. And our plants are going to tend to be broadleafed, so have that high surface area that we talked about in our rainforests, and deciduous. So when we say deciduous, when that temperature gets colder in the fall, those trees are going to shed their leaves. It's going to be important to know the difference between coniferous forests and deciduous forests. Our soil is very rich with nutrients because of that ability to have that high decomposing. And animals might migrate, so we see some of our animals migrate, such as our birds. We also might see hibernation or food storage to survive those cold conditions. So they're all different adaptations that animals might have to survive in this type of biome. So if we take a look, we can see our precipitation is much, much less in our temperate deciduous forest than we saw in our rainforest. So like we said earlier, 30 to 50 inches of rainfall. Then we also see a very high temperature fluctuation between all of our months here, where we saw last time our temperature was pretty evenly consistent. And where we're going to find temperate deciduous forests, we're going to see them in our northeast and just more like eastern border of the United States. We see some down in South America, a lot in Europe. Those are the major areas that we're going to see those. So different plants we're going to see here. Our deciduous forests are going to grow in layers. So more light reaches the forest floors than rainforests, so it's going to allow more plant growth near the floor bottom. So we'll see plants that have adapted to seasonal changes, because again, we have those very hot winters compared to our very cold winters. Hot summers to cold winters. So these are just some adaptations or some differences that we can see between the tropical rainforest that we saw, where there wasn't much growth on the bottom floor because of that dense layer. But since we have that transition with these, we're going to see a much different plant variety. Last forest that we're going to talk about is our boreal forest. This is also called the taiga. So in these forests, we're going to see long, cold winters and really short, cool summers. We see very nutrient poor and actually slightly acidic soils here. Very low species diversity. Not much that we can produce here with those long, cold winters and summers within food. These trees are going to be coniferous. So remember, coniferous are pine-bearing seeds. They also have needles. So we're going to see waxy needles, kind of a cone-like shape. And these have adapted to these really harsh, cold, snowy conditions. So here our animals are going to feed, breed, and care for their young, mostly during that really short warm season or short summer. And our year-round residents are going to have a really thick insulation and small extremities to maintain heat. So those are some adaptations that we're going to see. We see adaptations with our plants, with our coniferous trees having those waxy needles to protect themselves from that cold, and our animals as well taking advantage of those different seasonal changes to be able to reproduce and things like that. So our taiga is a region, again, of evergreen coniferous forests below Arctic and subarctic regions. So it's not quite in our Arctic tundra regions, but it is still in those really cold regions here. So it has very, very long winters and little vegetation. Our growing season can be short as 50 days. So it's less than 2 months for this area to have that ability to grow different plants rather than just the coniferous trees that we see there. So here we see a sporadic rainfall, not as evenly distributed, very high in what would be the warmer months here. And again, kind of a large temperature fluctuation, but still being decently cold. We're going to see this taiga very much in Upper Canada and in Russia over here. So plants of the taiga, we're going to see, again, conifers. Those are trees that have seeds that develop in cones, and their leaves help them retain water in the winter. So instead of shedding their leaves, they have needles, which really helps them keep the water over that season. Conifer shape also helps trees shed snow. So it's very easy for these needles to let snow fall off of them. That's another adaptation here. We have soil acidity. So these plants have adapted to live in a environment where we have an acidic soil. Soil is going to form slowly because of those long cold temperatures. And that's where we are going to stop here. So this is the end of our forests biome. So we talked about different tropical forests, we talked about temperate forests, and we talked about boreal forests. So remember, if you have any questions, make sure you ask.